Okay, so here we are for another drawing in the dark. This one was a pretty interesting challenge for the robot series. Yeah, so I'm doing Johnny 5, as you probably noticed from the thumbnail. This one was really challenging. This one was, spending a lot of time focusing on basic shapes, focusing not so much on like an overall body composition. I mean, Johnny 5 here is barely humanoid. So a lot of it was, working out the elements and stuff, keeping everything rough, keeping everything as generalized as I could, and just trying to make as small of decisions as I could in regards to the details as I was going through. And this one was pretty tough. I've sped all this up to about 8 times. This one took just about 2 hours to draw in real time, and I broke it up over a couple of different sittings, and really, really had to use a lot of reference and stuff. I mean, as far as like unfamiliar characters, the Voltron was something that I was at least familiar with, even though I hadn't like drawn out in my head and kind of like mapped out the physicality of the figure. Because that's one of the things that I really feel like, I don't know if it's like fully necessary. I mean, it just happens, when you draw things, when somebody draws a rose, you learn to understand a rose on a level different than people that just have seen or have looked at roses. When you study an object, a figure, a character, something like a rose or a tree or a sword or a snake, stuff like that, you become more mentally familiar with how the elements work together, how the anatomy works, how just the physical elements and stuff work. And you don't really get that kind of an understanding of those elements and objects until you draw it, until you study it in a level where you have to rationalize it and express it back out of your brain through your hand onto a surface. And so this guy, Johnny 5, was tough. And one of the things that while I was thinking about with this piece, as far as like the sense, the atmosphere, and everything, was it's real common in the movie Short Circuit for Johnny 5 to say Johnny 5 is alive, and so I was thinking, Johnny 5 is not alive. For one thing, he's a robot, and he's actually, in the movie, an electrical accident short circuits Johnny 5 to stop being a murder bot, because that's really what these kinds of robots were in that movie. Boston Dynamics, eat your heart out, I guess. But it turned out, to play on that concept of Johnny 5 being unalive, that I wanted to go for kind of like a zombie-ish kind of interpretation, and how to do that, especially how to do that on the fly. Because this isn't the kind of piece where I draw out 6 or 7 different sketches and then become familiar and reference and research him endlessly and stuff to prepare for a piece. I grabbed some of the most easily available images of Johnny 5 from Google, and then you just kind of paste those together and then work out something that I could put together kind of like on the fly. No real prep, no pre-sketching or anything like that. Man, he was tough. It was really tough. And a lot of it was, leaning back into basic shapes, leaning back into pressure control, with the pen, drawing lightly, working out other areas, more and more darkly and stuff, especially like as the pen starts to build up and get a little bit messier, you have to start, it kind of like pushes you into going darker. And so with that, it was, it was kind of a natural progression. This wasn't something that, the posing, the anatomy, the structure of the robot really kind of challenged me in a way that I necessarily didn't anticipate. I actually thought that this guy would be a lot easier to draw. One of the other issues is that a lot of the reference that I was looking at had a lot of contradictory details, where the general build, was recognizable and close enough. But when you started looking, when I started looking at the various pictures, individual pictures that I had pulled up for this, it, a lot of the stuff just didn't fit. And so once I got to a point where I had worked out all of these elements and stuff here, and got that general structure properly, I was just like, I'm just going to add in whatever details I want from this point, try not to break the rules of the structure of the robot too much, but then just interpret and add whatever, whatever could fit and whatever would work within, the body structure that I had already drawn. Because it really was something that, once you get to a point, especially like with what I'm doing with these, you've got to figure out the basics and stuff fairly quickly and then kind of commit to them. This might be one of the pieces that if I wasn't doing the drawing videos, and if I wasn't drawing it into the sketchbook like I am, a lot of the circumstances and the nature of my motivation for doing a piece like this wasn't there, I probably wouldn't have finished this guy. And that would have been a bummer too, because he did turn out pretty good. He did turn out pretty interesting, even though I used a lot more pen, put a lot more time into this guy than I thought I was going to, and definitely he was a bigger challenge than some of these other ones, even more so than something like Voltron. I don't think I got too far into talking about like really relying on the fundamentals as far as the shapes and general lighting, especially like just generic lighting in my mind. Not really going for like super dynamic lighting, anything that's like too particularly moody or anything, just something that helps to establish form and shadow and contrast in a generic kind of way. And so usually with that kind of light source, I generally just go with a from above and to the right, as far as like where the light source is coming from. And so if this robot had a light source that's coming from above and to the right, then everything that's on the left and underneath will be darker, and then that tells me what lines I really need to thicken, where to put the shadows and stuff. And I could have gotten quite a bit more carried away with the piece. I'm pretty happy with where it did end up, but I do think that I could have gotten even darker. One of the things that I started thinking about once I started really doing some of the shading and stuff was that I hadn't really envisioned like a background for this one that I did want to end up adding, but I never really quite got the chance to do that. I thought like a tree or a swampy kind of background would have been really cool for him. One of the things I have in my mind for this guy is that he's coming up from a swamp. He's rising back from the dead, as it were, as a zombified robot. And it definitely entertained me. It gave me a bit of a context to work the piece. And I do think that that's important. Sometimes when I draw, I'll imagine like a little bit of a story, or I try to be mindful and imaginative about the moment that I'm drawing. Is the moment lighthearted? Is the moment, an action kind of thing, or a introspective, dramatic, tragic kind of situation? That all, for me, ends up being really important just in the general putting things together. And I'm not saying that I'm always super successful at that, but reaching towards it, I think, is really important and can help to put a lot of mood, however subtle. into a piece, which I think is really important. You know, one of the things that is particularly important about art is that it has to evoke a response. Like if it doesn't really evoke any response at all, then you're really not pulling it off. Art really lives and dies on that kind of concept, as far as like, does it evoke any kind of response or mood? And often enough these days, what we'll see is that humor and defense are going to be the most easy, well, I don't know about easy, but at least the most effective as far as evoking moods and driving engagement. I would say definitely that offense is probably the easiest one to get away with. Humor can be really difficult, but offense is way easier. Hot takes and just flippant remarks. The internet is full of them. It is the mob unleashed upon itself, really, as far as social media goes. That's probably the thing that's like just really flat out bad and unhealthy for our society, our civilization, our culture, is that it is just, the angry, relentless mob unleashed upon itself. And there's no forgiveness from the mob. It just, it's just a rabid, feral, banal kind of foundational element of humanity, and the worst of it just magnified. There can be a lot of good, and but we don't really pay attention to the good. We don't necessarily put a special kind of value on the good. And as far as if you're trying to, say, generate content, create engagement, get views, participate in the whole ultra mass media communication experience that is social media and YouTube and TikTok and all that stuff, a lot of the times it really is just the easiest content to generate. If you can't think of anything else, think about something that'll piss people off, and you're going to do it anyway. You're going to piss people off no matter what, unless you're really, really super careful, tiptoeing around, trying to hide philosophies and agendas and opinions about, the politics and the philosophies of the current day. And it can be really easy to do that, and to some degree. And then other times, it could be terribly irresponsible as well. But so robot drawing. And again, I'm kind of going for, not all the robots I'm going to be drawing are going to be evil, but I do want to put like a darker kind of spin on them, and that is something that I'm going to do with these, with all these robots that I draw for this series. This one's number 3, and we'll be going into more of those later. But here we are, we're at the end of this whole thing for the most part. I just, first of all, want to thank everybody, for coming by and watching the videos and subscribing to the channel and all that stuff. Obviously, all of that makes a huge difference. It's really motivating as far as, continuing to do these, and that, that basic dopamine hit that I get whenever I see, likes and subscriptions and all that stuff. It's great fun. And making the content, this kind of content, as far as just kind of like a raw drawing kind of experience and stuff, I'm really having fun with and stuff. So, if you got this far, which very, very few do, I just want to thank you for doing all the things. And, the end title cards here, the Pop Culture Classics podcast, Kenny and I are working on some stuff to get more content up on there. I've got a bunch of art books on Amazon, the Comic Book Planner, the All Skulls Coloring Book, and the Jade Monkey, the Curse of the Jade Monkey Activity Book, which is good fun. We've got t-shirts available somehow, somewhere on the internet. You can buy these t-shirts. I'm going to figure out more information to provide you guys for that kind of stuff as I can. And yeah, a little final shot here of Johnny 5 is alive. Yeah, all right. We'll catch you guys later.